So my name is Debbie Abreu. I'm with Kentucky Youth Advocates, and April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, as all of you probably know. As we wrap up this month, we wanted to create a space for healing. And Face It is happy to be co-hosting this event with Family and Children's Place to provide a platform for survivors to share their healing journey. We know that this can be a difficult topic, and we want to encourage you to practice self-care. Feel free to mute your audio or step away if you need to. Just do whatever you need to take care of yourself. And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Melissa, for just a minute to kick us off.
All right. Thank you, Debbie. And hello, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, I guess it is. I hope you all are doing well. I am Melissa Collins with Kentucky Youth Advocates. I'm our engagement coordinator here at KYA. And we're so grateful that you all are joining us today. And to get us started, I want to get us, engaged a little bit. And we are going to drop in a link to a Mentipoll here. And if you all can, if you haven't used Mentipoll before, no worries, we'll walk you through it. But basically, it's just a platform to get us engaged, to get us talking and thinking this afternoon. And I'm going to share my screen, but basically what we're doing is we want to get your all's opinion on what does healing mean to you. So if you all open up that link, you all can drop in sort of what comes to mind when you think of healing, right? So, and it can look different for everyone, but I will be sharing my screen here and we can actually see when everyone submits their responses. So can you all see that? Give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen here. Perfect. Awesome. Great. So we have people, yes, taking time to reflect and process how you're feeling, how you're going to move forward. Absolutely. Learning to move on while building upon the pain as a victor. Absolutely. I love that. Yes. Becoming whole. Yes. Yes, absolutely. All of these: peace, letting go, having choice in my journey. Absolutely. Again, as we're going to be talking about today, healing looks different for everyone. It's not linear, right? So this is definitely having choice and being able to kind of take control of that. That's great. Peace, overcoming, moving forward, addressing your past and moving forward in a positive way. Yes, addressing and also being able to move forward. That positivity is key. Awesome. And feel free to keep on submitting these. We love these to be able to share these with us. And I will be passing it back over to Pam Darnell to get us started again. President of Family and Children's Place. Pam, thank you so much for being here and co-hosting with us today. So I will stop my screen share. Thank you all for sending in those great responses. And Pam, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. Family and Children's Place is honored to be able to co-host this event today with you all. We've spent about 140 years walking side by side with individuals, families, and children impacted by child abuse, neglect, and trauma. We also know that sometimes the scars that we can't see are the hardest to heal. And so our amazing trained therapists, we have one of those great folks with us here today, support survivors as they define their own healing and take the steps so that they can progress to the next stages of their lives, whatever that is. We know there's no specific roadmap that everybody should follow to healing, but our wonderful therapists help survivors to realize their own strengths, to equip themselves to face the challenges that they may encounter. We know that when an individual experiences trauma, that their loved ones are also impacted. And so we include the whole family in our work, whatever that means to the family, whoever that might be. We also know that childhood trauma can lead into an adulthood spent in survival mode, where we may be afraid to really plant roots and plan for our future. Some inability to trust and to let joy in our lives. So Family and Children's Place, along with all of you here today, are helping to transform our community and to help those who are surviving to make sure they are thriving. So thank you all so much. I look forward to the rest of this event today.
Thank you so much, Pam. And actually, we are sorry, our next, we're going to have somebody else join us, but she's running a couple minutes late. So we're just going to kind of revamp our format here. So we have with us today 3 different survivors of abuse. And so we just want to take some time to introduce them, let them introduce themselves. And also, again, like what was already said, we know that everyone's healing journey looks different. And so we'd like them just to be able to take some time to talk about what their healing journey looks like for them and maybe where they're at in their healing journey, because it's not linear. There's ups and downs, and there's different seasons of it. So we have with us Kathleen and Morgan, and Jennifer is just joining us now. So Kathleen, do you want to start us off?
Sure, I will. Hello, everybody. My name is Kathleen Neistat, and I am a survivor of childhood sex abuse, and that included incest, physical abuse, torture, and familial sex trafficking. I also was in a domestic violence situation that included intimate partner rape, and that was a 20-year marriage that ended in divorce, which was part of my healing, that divorce. I feel like, healing for me has looked like realizing what was happening to me and my children, and starting to get the help that I needed, individual help. And then again, that turned into, getting a divorce and getting out of that bad situation. It also included things like therapy, individual therapy. At times it looked like medication, sometimes inpatient hospitalization, group therapy and support groups. Also, it looked like gathering myself a team of support, from friends that I trusted. And, finally, just kind of being able to create a safe space for myself that has allowed myself, my real true self, to kind of come to the surface. And that is where I am today. I have my own house. I have 3 beautiful children who are all young adults. And so, all of these pieces, we think of self-care and we kind of put those in boxes, but it's not in a box, right? And it is what is helpful for us as individuals. So I will hand it to Morgan because I don't want to keep taking up and monopolize all the time. But yeah, I think that this is a really good place to start. So Morgan.
Thanks, Kathleen. I love Kathleen and I work a lot together, and so I love being here with you and hearing your stories. So thank you all so much for having me today. I'll start with some of the kind of personal. I am a survivor of childhood abuse, but also of adult abuse that I experienced as well. In my childhood, a lot of what it looks like was some physical, for sure, mostly emotional abuse that I experienced. And as a transracial adoptee, I was a little brown baby who was being adopted by an all-white family and growing up in Southern Indiana. So I experienced a lot throughout my life and still experience a lot of race-based trauma that came from my family, but also the communities that I've been in as well. So that's a lot of what I bring kind of to the table in my experiences that we'll, of course, talk about today. In my adulthood, I was in a relationship that I experienced sexual and interpersonal violence that also came and has just in the last couple of years really been a prominent piece of my life and confronting. So kind of to that point, in terms of the childhood abuse that I experienced from my family, the confrontation really began, I would say, kind of about 3 to 4 years ago, where I really started speaking up about the experiences I was having within the family, addressing the issues that we don't want to talk about, in our families, and also just speaking out as a Black woman who experienced quite a bit of microaggression within my family. That really led to what I would say today is only having relationships on both sides of my family that are pretty much with my moms themselves. I did grow up with two moms as well. I didn't share that, but with two moms. And I just got married 2 years ago, and when I really started speaking about being a Black woman, pretty much no one from almost either side of my family, some, but almost no one from either side of my family actually attended my wedding because of me speaking out about those things. So that's kind of what my confrontation has looked like and where I am today. I also came forward and confronted the person who caused me harm as an adult within a sexual and interpersonal violence relationship. He and I were both really involved in things going on in Louisville around the death of Breonna Taylor, and that coming out and speaking out about that abuse led to quite a bit of backlash from my community, but also in forms of threats and issues with my safety. So I would say both of my confrontations have really been strong the last couple of years, and I've had a lot of experiences because of it. And I don't want to take up too much more time. I do want to say, in terms of my healing, the reason I kind of brought up the confrontation part, if you will, is because for me, that's when I actually felt like I was starting to heal. I was actually putting words and voicing my experiences, which I had so long been taught to not talk about. And for me, that was such a critical change in my life where I was like, oh, so that's what it feels like to take a breath. And so I would say my healing is definitely has its ups and downs. I wake up each day and I take the day on with my mental health and where I am in my healing journey. So it can look different every day, but I really am appreciative to be here and share with you all my experiences. So I can hand it over to Jennifer, I think, right, Debbie? Jennifer, I'll hand it to you.
Right. Jennifer had to hop on just a couple minutes late, so just to make sure, Jennifer, so we just wanted to give the platform to you for a minute to talk about what your healing journey looks like.
Sure. So my name's Jennifer Bays. I experienced different types of trauma that included witnessing domestic violence, emotional and sexual childhood abuse, along with sexual assault during teenage years, and also a survivor of interpersonal violence or domestic violence. So that's some of the pieces that I've kind of worked through a little bit through healing and through my journey that I'm hoping to share a little bit with everybody today. Healing definitely is different based on, or when you look at the different types of trauma. And I mean, even trauma reactions can come from bullying or some of them other forms of trauma that maybe we don't hear as much about. My healing journey, I feel like knowledge within itself was a big one for me, because the more I seem to understand how the thoughts weren't healthy and maybe coming from a place just of unhealthy comfortability, the more I felt like I had that knowledge and understood that, then I feel like I was really able to then focus on some of that counseling, some of that really good identity and self-worth that many times when, especially during teenage years, my image or picture of what worth was as a woman was very different than what I have been able to learn and the picture I have now. I know today I was going to be sharing a little bit more information about, things that could be helpful if someone is exploring that healing journey, either for themselves or for a family member or a friend. So are we still okay with me kind of doing that and sharing right now?
Definitely. And just to give kind of that, so Jennifer is an LCSW, a licensed clinical social worker with Family Health Centers. And we did think that it was important today just to kind of give a brief, just a brief information about like the long-term effects of child abuse and the importance of seeking help. So thank you, Jennifer. Go ahead.
You're welcome. So yes, I am a licensed clinical social worker and a U of L Kent School alumni. Go Cards. And primarily in my past counseling or therapy experience, a lot of that was in intensive settings, such as residential treatment with kiddos and intensive in home, with more of a child and family focus. Recently, I am in a more integrated care setting, to where I see a lot more age ranges than just the child and parenting stuff that I used to work with. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. Before I share some information, I thought it would be really important for me to first just kind of say thank you to all the people that have signed up today to learn a little bit more about this journey. Again, either for yourself or a family member. Trauma is something that for a very long time we couldn't really talk about. It was very taboo or it was bad. And so the more that we're able to normalize that discussion, the more that it's okay to talk about it and it's okay to go there, that's when we really start then being able to have our children and loved ones really feel comfortable talking to us if they're getting harmed. So thank you so much for signing up and gaining a little bit more knowledge, because that within itself is one small baby step to where we're trying to get. So when I thought about a couple things, not too much, but a couple big things that I found very helpful in your journey when you're trying to feel better or get to a better place after something harmful or scary has happened to you. There's two big words that kind of shot out to me. One of them is awareness. And the other one that I'll talk about in just a second is acceptance. So awareness, being able to have that understanding of your physical body, have an understanding and know how it feels when your body does feel anxious or when your thoughts start going into a certain place. Having that awareness and being able to understand your body is so powerful. It's such a big tool. There's different therapy tools that's out there that can be helpful for awareness. And two of the big ones that I use is grounding and mindfulness. Any of the pieces that I talk about today, of course, you can always schedule with a clinician or a counselor and learn more about these tools. If the Google search of mindfulness just doesn't seem to be as helpful, a clinician or a therapist can really look at the more intensive forms or more detailed forms of mindfulness or grounding with you. So them are two ways to raise awareness. Education or knowledge can also, I feel, be helpful with awareness. Because the more you understand what might be going on in your body, the more you understand why your body might be feeling a certain way. I think that within itself gives you the power and the understanding to move forward. So for you guys to have kind of a little snippet, a start of education, I'm going to share, again, this is something that there's tons of other data, tons of other research. So this is just kind of very kind of review of trauma and how that can affect your body. So when we are born with what I'm gonna call our basic brain. And that part of our brain, it tells us to breathe. It tells us to cry if we're hungry. It really controls them very basic functionings that we have as an infant when we're first born. Another part that is part of that basic brain is what we call the survival instinct. It is something that has been a part of our biology for as long as we can see. I mean, even back in caveman days, when they had to protect their offspring from the critters in the lake kind of thing. So when we are born, we already have this mechanism in our brain to help either ourselves survive or a loved one survive or offspring. And this part of the brain, you might have heard it in the form of fight, freeze, fight, flight, or freeze. Yes. Am I missing one? Wait. Okay. So there's three. I think I'm good. I think the fight one, the freeze one.
The flight. Fight, flight, freeze.
Fight, flight, freeze. The middle one I was missing. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's, you hear that a lot, or people will mention that. So when you hear that, that is talking about that survival instinct, that part of your brain that will or can be triggered without you even realizing it's happening. And this part of our brain, how it keeps us safe, is if our body senses danger, it will start shutting down parts of our brain. So boom, there goes our logical thinking. Boom, there goes our problem solving. Boom, there goes our ability to pull up our memories. And then the only part of our brain that's active when our body senses we're in danger is that basic brain. And so, again, this can happen without you even realizing it's happening. And if our body senses we're in danger and kickstarts and initiates that safety mechanism, we're not really able to think. We're not able to have that rational thought, because that part of our brain is kind of offline at that time. So our nervous system, is what can really change over time, especially if there's multiple traumas. So part of our biology, when we talk about this survival instinct, is after the scary stuff is gone, after we feel like we're not in danger anymore, then our brain then says, okay, I think we can come back online again. And our nervous system starts regulating itself back to a normal, we're just chill, everything's okay. But what we see in trauma is if someone experiences a trauma and doesn't have support, ensured safety, resources, or if someone experiences multiple traumas, it's like their nervous system isn't able to regulate fully and appropriately. and so this, one way I say this to patients is it's like your nervous system can be all jacked up. It's not really having the best perception of when you hear a door slam or you hear a loud noise or you hear maybe even the smallest thing or maybe around tons of people. So, that can be something when we talk about healing moving forward, that knowledge base of, okay, I'm not in danger. My body feels like I'm in danger apparently because I'm really feeling this. I'm not really thinking clearly. That awareness or that knowledge is so helpful for you to understand your body a little bit, understand and not feel guilt for if you are not able to regulate your nervous system very quickly, or if a door slamming bothers you but don't bother other people. That knowledge and that awareness that, okay, this internally has happened to my body, and sometimes I can't help it. Sometimes it's gonna make me feel not safe, even when I am. So, that piece of information I always like to give to any patient that has a diagnosis of or that I diagnosed with PTSD. Something else that's kind of an education piece and goes into a little bit of the initiation of the survival instinct and regulating your nervous system. Another thing I like to remind patients is your body knows. So if you're not safe, but yet you're telling your body you're safe, you're telling it all the right stuff. Your body knows when you're not safe. Your body knows. You can't fake it. You can't fake safety to your body. Because again, these things unconsciously are going on in your body when you don't even you're not even having that conscious thought about it. So with that education or piece of knowledge, using that also to go into this second term or the second word that I'm going to share with you. So the first one was awareness. The second word that I want to share with you guys is acceptance. So acceptance, it's one of the words that we can say it, but accepting sometimes is very difficult because we might have the knowledge or we might know what's going on in our brain, but accepting that we need to stop, accepting that we deserve to check in on ourselves, accepting that right now my nervous system isn't working the best, and I'm going to accept that I need to take care of me. The world we live in, there's a billion things to do, and it never stops, and we're always having to-do lists. So acceptance is not always easy, and so to me that makes it even more important of working on that acceptance, working on, even if someone else does not understand your need at that time, that line or that boundary that you feel like you need to put in place because you don't feel safe or secure in what you're doing, that acceptance that boundary is still needed, or that line or that time for yourself is still needed, even if others don't understand or feel like your boundaries are important. Again, sometimes it's when we talk about family members, when we talk about people, some people it's harder to accept that we're not okay and to say something. So by no means is the journey easy, I could say. And having the acceptance to take that time for yourself. Also, acceptance that everybody's trauma looks different. Everybody's background, everybody's history, everything from your culture, your age, your socio-economic status, or how much money you make, all of these things are going to make your journey very individual to you. And as a clinician, I would want it to be that way, because each person that comes in my office is so different. You know, you have your own skill set, you have your own awesomeness, and it looks totally different from anybody else's. And so accepting that you might have to go through your journey a little different than the other person, or accepting that even if you take a step back, even if you allow someone to cross the line, accepting that you can, you know, it's okay. And acceptance and not always being able to have strict, rigid lines or boundaries. So acceptance is definitely a big one. So the awareness and the acceptance are the two things that I feel like is really important for the journey and finding a healthier, happier place in that journey for you. There is two other small pieces of info that I wanted to share with everybody. And I know we are time limited, so, you know, I'll be very conscious. So one other thing I wanted to share with you guys is, you know, when we talk about awareness, when we talk about finding yourself in a place of acceptance that, you know, hey, my body just really isn't feeling it, I'm not reacting, I'm struggling with this healing, then acceptance also includes seeking out a clinician, a therapist, a counselor, a support that might be able to help you. So even accepting supports can be very difficult. Let me put that out there. Accepting help from supports can be difficult. So that kind of brings me to just share the different types of therapy modules or types of therapy that can be really helpful for someone in that journey. There's a couple types, and I'm gonna go over them, but then I just want to put it out there of what really these therapies are doing and how are they helping. Maybe just in another way, in case someone might not have a picture of what trauma treatment is or what that might look like. So first, let me say that EMDR, that is a therapy tool that the research shows, based on research, it has the best outcomes when it comes to a quicker response to the treatment, longer positive effects. So EMDR is one that has a lot of research on it that they suggest. Trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy, trauma systems therapy. These therapy techniques, they all have a couple things in common. And that is, when people are coming into trauma treatment, this is in many ways that person redefining, recreating, taking back power, regaining control, or regaining direction. A lot of the trauma treatment, you know, whatever letters you might see, or, you know, each one has its pros and its cons. When someone goes into trauma treatment, you know, it's about you recreating. It's you creating your own definition to that experience. It's you replacing the harmful, negative stuff that was put in there by others. And it's it's creating healthier replacement thoughts, healthier replacement vision, or a picture of a healthy relationship, a healthy partner, a healthy self. So I just wanted to throw that descriptor out there in case people had a very worried feel about what trauma treatment was. And then the very last piece that I'd like to share with you guys is, I tried to think, what was that, or what is that one thing that in session I feel like people might get that, oh, okay, it seems to help a lot of people. So I tried to think of a piece of info that I could give you guys that patients in the past seem to find helpful. And so,
Jennifer,
yes,
actually, if you don't, we do kind of need to move on to our other panel questions. So maybe
Sure.
in our follow-up email, we can include some of the information about the different types of treatment. Does that sound okay?
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. So as has already been mentioned here several times, we know that that there's different highs and lows in the healing process. So I just wanted you guys to be able to weigh in and kind of talk about what does healing look like in your daily life? And then, yeah, so we'll just go with that. Kathleen, you want to start us out?
Yeah, for me, healing is definitely something that I really have to be kind of mindful of. And, I think first of all, for me, I have such a problem with dissociation, and, that whole dissociative piece, really is difficult. So I really have to try to do things, to try to stay present, to kind of ground myself, and because there's so many things. Just like a few days ago, I discovered I had termites in my house, and it was really hard for me to kind of, first of all, kind of not just fall down this rabbit hole of, oh my gosh, I can't believe, and so I have to kind of talk to myself like, okay, I'm a homeowner now, and these things happen every day, kind of just, like, this is the real world, join the club, right? Like, just because I have termites doesn't mean that my whole life isn't going to, spiral out of control. And I've just had to work really hard to kind of keep myself present, to try to, normalize these things that, that happen to everybody every day. So that's really, the big thing, because I do, and I also tend to freeze up. So it's kind of also still like that questions that I need to ask myself. Okay, so I have this problem. I have termites. Now what do? I got to find somebody that can come out and talk, right? And kind of walk myself through these steps instead of just sitting and spiraling in the fact that I have termites, right? So that was, one of the really big things that I have to battle every day. Morgan, what do you think?
Sure, I can take it. Thanks, Kathleen. So for me, I think the when I think about like how I traditionally and have, I would say very much still respond, even though like I'm further in my healing journey than I was 5 years ago. I tend to kind of shut down and shut people out. That's my avoidance. And I know for a long time I used to tell myself, my family, I didn't feel like my family loved me. Got in a relationship that I didn't feel loved. I was adopted, and as an adopted child, sometimes you struggle with that feeling of being wanted. And so I would often tell myself, it's better for me to go ahead and like just remove people from my life before they can remove themselves, because I wanted to protect what that detachment or whatever it might look like was going to feel like. So I was like, I'll just shut people out. So for me, I think that's still kind of how I respond. Now, I will say that I have for the last couple of years really removed a lot of people out of my life. And that wasn't just because I was having a response, it was for my safety, my well-being. And so for me, every day looks like communication, and being able to speak up and communicate my needs, which I didn't have for so long. And I feel like I can more now. And also just recognizing when I'm starting to have those shut down, overwhelming, obsessive thoughts sometimes about who I am and what my place is in the world. So just communicating with others and also just communicating with myself is, I think, what helps me in whatever, however I feel day to day, because it varies. But yeah, I would also just say that in terms of self-care, and which I know we're going to get to in a bit, but one thing that my friends and I say to each other, and especially my friends who are fellow survivors, is that we have to protect our peace. So I have really been working hard on that in terms of protecting my peace so I can heal, instead of putting up some of the barriers that sometimes I'll put up or others put up. So yeah, I would say that's it. And then Jennifer, I'll hand it to you.
In my journey, I feel like, the boundaries, being okay with them. I think that has been the biggest kind of help in my journey, and what I've kind of been focusing on, that balance of, how much others need from us and how much we give ourselves. As adults, that often can be pushed one way or the other, usually the other. But yeah, I think the boundaries in my healing, that's kind of, what I found helpful and what I'm continuing to kind of focus on and check in with myself on. And also, again, that remembering that even if I take a step back, like I'm still making progress. I'm still, at least at least I've seen myself take a step back. So, remembering not to expect me to just all them years and then for me to just be like, oh, I totally am never going to struggle with this again. That acceptance and that balance of sometimes I'm not going to, some days I'm still going to be working on that. And some days I feel like I'm kicking butt at it. So, just kind of trying to have them good boundaries while I move through that journey.
Thank you so much for sharing, guys. We're gonna go into just our last question here, which actually is going to be like a 2-point question. So what things have you found supportive or helpful in your healing journey? And you can also share maybe what has not been so helpful. And then just really kind of like action items. How can the community help support individuals in their healing journey, or how can individuals? So however you guys want to answer that. Oops. Kathleen, you can go ahead and start.
Okay, I'll go first. I think for me, just, things that have been very supportive. Again, therapy has been very important to me. Looking for a family member. My sister and I definitely have that good connection. I don't really have much of a good connection with like my brothers, but having my sister there for me has been helpful. And trying to find friends that understand, friends that I can talk to, that understand trauma, what it looks like. It doesn't mean that they have to know all of my story. It just means that they kind of know that there might be times like I get stuck, or, and they don't have to fix me, but maybe just listen and sit with me. So that's been very helpful. And of course, my faith has been, and that's definitely something that has changed a lot over the years. And not, and for me, kind of feeling, the church has been different than your faith. So, I think that, there's a lot on that I have learned. What's not been very helpful is when people try to fix me, or people give just kind of very glib advice, like, oh, your parents must have done something right, which is like, okay, that's not very helpful. and or just people who aren't listening to me. I think a good way though that people can support survivors is get involved with these great nonprofits that are out there, and support them in ways, and also just again educating yourself, and listening to people, and you know try not to fix them, but just listen and validate.
I can go next. So really my support system are folks who listen. I have found that I've really developed up a support network outside of my family. So chosen family is kind of where I I feel the safest, and so those are my people. In terms of what folks can do, and I think especially moving forward, how our community can help. I am a big proponent of addressing and implementing alternative forms of justice, so justice outside of our systems. A lot of folks didn't believe me and the experiences I've had as a child or an adult, because I didn't call the police. And for me, I'm a Black woman, and also I'm in this work, and I know how often systems don't always do the best in supporting survivors, especially survivors from oppressed communities. So for me, I really urge people to invest time into addressing root causes of violence. I'm kind of tired, like just frankly, that we have to keep having these conversations. Not this necessarily, but I feel like I show up every day in my job and we're talking about the same thing we were talking about last year. And we're talking about the same thing we were talking about the year before. And we haven't really invested time into addressing how do we actually shift the prevalence of violence in our communities. And that for me is what is going to be the most supportive thing that people can do for a survivor is how do we actually address ending violence. So that's what I would urge folks to do. And if you want more resources, of course, I will share and make sure that you all have some resources in the follow-up email. But those are kind of where I would love to call action to our community.
Jennifer, you want to go ahead?
I can go next if you like. When I think about what has been helpful, definitely certain supports, and self-care, even to the point where finding happiness or feelings of contentment with myself, even when nobody else is around, even when nobody else is having any effect on my mood or my thoughts. I think that's been really helpful to explore ways I can have my own individual happiness and peace. When it comes to the community, there's a couple of things I wanted to put out there. And again, if it's more clinicians listening out there, you guys probably already know this. But the support members or the community support, a couple of things is safety, because sometimes when people make changes and try to stop trauma, it can be very dangerous. And so that kind of, again, that brings me to the second suggestion or encouragement, is never assume it's a very easy decision. Never assume it's a very easy choice just to leave a harmful partner. Because sometimes that person's reality to you might seem like hell, but to them, it might not seem that bad. So, try not to assume or think it's that easy for someone to just get out of a harmful situation. But if you can even give them feelings of safety in that 15 minutes that you're having a conversation with them. If you can acknowledge their safety, if you can be a safe person, even during that small interaction that they're having with you, sometimes that can be huge for that person's rest of the day.
Thank you. We're going to go ahead and close out with a creative piece from Glenisha Mudd. Glenisha is a spoken word artist and licensed therapist who specializes in treating sexual abuse and other forms of sexual violence in children, adolescents, and young adults. She takes creative approaches in therapy, bringing together her love of spoken word and her passion and skill for therapy to create safe and unique spaces for healing. Glenisha is also a public speaker, focusing on topics such as mental health, particularly involving sexual violence, human trafficking, and generational cycles of abuse in Black and Brown families. Glenisha is also a mother, a wife, and a lover of all things that scream creative expression. She created an original piece titled, "Can I Have Your Attention?" which she's going to perform for us today. It speaks to the signs and symptoms that so many of us miss and compels us to wake up and pay close attention. So many children wait in silence for someone to notice, only for their behavior to overshadow what is really going on. It's Glenisha's belief that our healing journey is our own. It belongs to us. It should never look like anyone else's and should therefore be honored and treated with patience and respect. Glenisha is a firm believer that since our trauma is very real, our healing should be real also. Glenisha, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I do want to check. Can you all hear me? Okay. 8:09, 8:18, 8:27, 8:36. Another 9 minutes for a report to exist, for a file to be opened, another case to sit and be closed. And all the while, no one knows, until it's time to disclose and bear truth to my soul, the very thing that he said I must keep quiet. I better not try it, to make sure to hide it, to start telling lies when they start asking questions, to lie and deny it. But did I really hide it? Or did you just not see? The way that I cried out to you, the attention I would seek. See, you called it defiance. I called it a cry. When I would talk back and lash out, just hoping you would ask, why? Why am I so angry? Why am I so rude? Maybe then I could answer. Maybe then I could tell you why I just can't seem to eat, why I'm so worried and stressed, why right now I just really can't focus on passing your test, writing your essay, or raising my hand, participating in class. See, no, you don't understand that doesn't matter. Not when my safety is shattered, trust continually broken. I'm not even 18 and I already trust no one. Because the last time I trusted, the last time I tried, the only thing that I felt were the tears in my eyes, the heat on my face, the pain in my back, the lump in my throat when my peace was attacked, my innocence ravaged by what he did to me. But you didn't notice. Now you didn't see the way that I casually would roll up my sleeves, hoping the cuts on my arm would just start to bleed. I mean, would that get your attention? Or would you say I'm acting out? See, because there's no acting here. Only the truth of my abuse, the guilt, the shame, the fear. See, I know it's not just me, but that makes it hurt even worse to know that other kids in my class, on the court, on the field, in the gym, in the church, are also getting hurt. See, let me explain this thing, the truth of the pandemic.
Frozen.
At us, knowing just how helpless and powerless we would be with no one to trust. See, COVID didn't just take lives, it took us. 8:45, 8:54, 9:03. Another 9 minutes. Another report to authorities of another case of sexual abuse. It's happening again. And while we're wearing our mask, charging our devices and logging in, all I can do for the next 12 months is wonder, when will this end? It can end with you. Maybe it's true that you know what to do if you slow down and notice that I'm acting different and I can't seem to focus, that my behavior does have a function. And instead of asking what's wrong with me, ask me what happened. You may be surprised at my response and what I mentioned. And sexual abuse would be a part of my story, but wouldn't have to be my ending. And maybe this next 9 minutes will look very different because you saw my behavior and decided to listen. I knew that it could end with you. I'm just glad that I got your attention. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Glenisha. That was wonderful. A wonderful way to send us off. And on behalf of Cozier Charities Face It movement, we would like to thank all of you all for joining, all of our wonderful guests and panelists today. And thank you to Family and Children's Place for co-hosting this wonderful event. It was great to hear such wonderful stories of healing. And follow-ups will be sent in our follow-up email. So be sure to stay tuned for that. And again, we hope that you all have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.